all in. So I think, we got Bob here. You
Right,
can get up.
ex-chair, I'll call it to order temporarily here, just till we get a chair.
Do a roll call.
Roll call, please, Ed.
Andy Kiddums,
Here.
Scott Robert, Joel Randrup,
Here.
Daniel Cardenas,
Here.
Don Spiegelmeier,
Here.
Casey Knight,
Here.
Wally McDonald.
Here. So move. You guys get a chance to look at the minutes, entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Any objection? Then it's unanimously approved. Any amendments? No. Persons to be heard? Related or unrelated? No. Harbor Master report.
Well, it's in the packet. I don't know if anybody has any questions. I just kind of did the rundown from the last one. Pretty normal. We'll talk about Scow Bay later. CCON we'll talk about, and a little bit about ACL. So unless anybody has any questions, it'll be submitted as part of the agenda.
Right? Guess we'll move on then. New business, appointment of the chair and vice chair. Go ahead, you guys.
So, I'd like to nominate Casey Knight for chairman and Don Spiegelmeier for vice chairman.
Second.
If they agree. Must agree before I got here.
Right?
Anybody else wants to do that?
Well, everyone in favor of that roster, raise your hand. Unanimous.
Oh, boy.
DOG.
There are 6, 7 on this.
6, 7.
Okay, so moving on to item B then. American Cruise Lines lease application. Maybe have Glow kick it off with a rundown of kind of what's going on, what's happened since we last talked about it and
You bet.
what's going on.
Well, the last time it was before you, you had, the board had agreed that, well, concept 7 was one that, that you could live with, and understanding that American Cruise Line wants to put a dock, either a partnership or lease and put a dock out off of the Port Street dock out there, you know, for lack of a better terms, the Petro dock to the south. And so we moved all summer kind of back and forth. The manager, Assembly told the manager to negotiate partnership, building a facility, and we ran that course. And I believe there were just some big hurdles that they decided that were too involved, too expensive. So they came back to the table with proposing that they lease the property and build their own facility there. And I know that was discussed at our last meeting, and that, you know, I mean, I think the board at that time, you know, decided that they had heard from the public that ownership was really important and that we should have, you know, some kind of grounds for control through ownership. But since then, I think most people have decided that there's, you know, there's a lot of confusion between ownership and control. It's kind of, you know, that the public tends to use those same terms interchangeably. But I think what the public really wants is control, and we can do that through the lease. So what's before you today is accepting the lease that what they want is accepting the application to move forward. It's up to the assembly regardless whether you voted up or down. But what they would like to do is lease approximately 2,200 square feet of borough tidelands for the purpose of constructing a mooring float at the end of Dock Street. If the assembly agrees to it, then the borough staff will start working on lease language. And I don't know, it may come back before you, it may not, but there definitely will be time at the assembly level to have public, public question and answers. So if it does come back to you, then, they may do that, but I can't promise that. So that is where we are with ACL. It's been about a year back and forth, and this is the next step. So
Maybe, I'm kind of thinking maybe before we start doing discussion, maybe we just entertain a motion, get a motion on the floor. If anybody wants to make a motion, whether to approve or to approve with some caveats or anything like that. Or if nobody's ready to make a motion, we can just have discussion, but maybe start out by seeing if anybody's ready to make a motion.
Well, I got a couple assembly guys here. I'd like to just ask a couple of questions. Appreciate you guys being here. So I'll admit it, I'm behind on this one. So where are we at within the assembly? Has this been brought up for reading already? And have you guys taken any kind of votes on this, or has it been, I mean, I know you guys have probably discussed it, right? This particular 2,200 square feet.
Jeff's fresh out of the chute right now because he just got back on.
Yeah.
I had to explain to only about 47 guys in the harbor that what I voted in favor of was Steve having talks with ACL on this thing. Am I right about that, Glo, or am I wrong?
Well, they put in an application and it has to by ordinance go through planning and zoning. And then they also wanted it come to the harbor board before they make any decision. So that's where
Back in-
this,
What I'm saying about back in early spring.
yeah, that was negotiating a partnership.
Right.
That was back in
That's-
part-
All it was a vote
Yeah.
to negotiate for a partnership.
Right.
So that's where it was then. And then I checked in with Steve every once in a while and he said, well, there's this, there's that, and there's everything. It's not going well.
So my understanding is that's kind of off the table and they're
Yeah,
applying.
we don't want to pay a head tax. We don't want to do this. We don't want to do that. So there were some things in there that for whatever reason, it kind of fell apart a little bit. And that's what Ann's saying is that, okay, we're not liking this road. We're going to try another road. And then when I'm just listening to Glo talk, it's like, well, if I want to lease something, I still own it. It's about control, right? You're not relinquishing any ownership of anything. It's what can you control under a lease? So that's, and I'll be very transparent about it. Certain people are like, well, you should recuse yourself from voting at all. And I was like, they're already here. I'm not gonna benefit one way or another. And even the suggestion that the only reason I'm gonna vote one way or another is to benefit me. I got a couple words for you, but you're not gonna like them. So anyway, I didn't recuse myself from the vote, and I didn't see any way I was gonna make any more or any less money. But whatever, anytime we vote on anything regarding the harbor, I should recuse myself because I've got 2 stalls down there year round, right? So, or anybody that drives a welding truck down to work at the drive down dock, should recuse themselves, I guess. I don't know. It's a small town. Gets weird. All right, that's all I got. Maybe Jeff has something.
Yeah, the application is just what's before you is to move it forward or to recommend not to, lease them. And you could do that here. It'll still go to the assembly. It'll still go through the process. They'll take your, your comments, but it may or may not, as you know, be the deciding. Yeah.
I guess hearing that, if anybody else has anything, I'd make a motion to move this forward.
I had a couple of questions. Is 60 years, oh,
Sorry, any seconds
go
to,
on.
on that motion?
Well, you can always vote it down. So moving it forward gives you a chance to discuss. If you don't want to discuss it, then don't second it.
Because then we can move into discussion.
Yeah, so
Now that's on
yeah.
the table, we can move into
Yeah.
discussion.
Okay, so we've got a motion on the table.
Who's the second?
Who is, am I allowed to second?
No.
Is that, okay,
You'll second.
Andy seconds. Okay, so discussion in favor or against of approving this lease.
I had a question. Is 60 years a standard term for leasing harbor property?
55. And so I don't know if you saw my email that I sent you yesterday, just kind of outline some of the concerns that I had that I wanted to be paid attention to in the lease. And, one of those, of course, it's a standard, there's a standard number. So leases, I think by ordinance, they used to be 55, now they're 50. So the attorney and I did talk about that and it'll be 50. And what happens there is they are revisited every 5 years. So you lease and then every 5 years they come back up for consideration and they either just extend their lease or that's a chance that both parties can walk away from it. And it also gives a chance for the borough to assess it and then the rate to change.
So
So
50 years is
standard.
what, and presumably if this, if this goes through the assembly, once you're negotiating the lease language, that will, because it's in the application here, the 60.
Yeah, they
isn't it?
said 60,
Yeah.
but it'll revert to 50
Okay.
because that's the law of the land.
Okay.
It's,
Is subleasing allowed? Once they have the 60-year term, are they,
so there were some things that I said in my little email out, and one of them was, that they would not have the ability to negotiate with a third party unless it was okayed by the harbor or by the harbor master. And that was because there are, there may be situations where from us, it's a chance for me to get people away from the drive down and tie up over there when they're not in town. They stand to use this, what they've explained as 50 times a year. And so there's, definitely will be days that they're not using this facility and there might be a good chance for us to, send one of the other boats over there and free up some of the harbor public area. So that was one of them.
who would get revenue from that?
Not the harbor. They
Okay.
would. So that, that's one of those things where we would consider.
Too full of a harbor, then we got a couple more spots to. Yeah.
My other question was, there's 4 other users on that small dock right now. Have they put in comments, public comments?
They will. Once this process moves forward, all of the adjacent property owners will get the letter and we have to do a plat. And so if this gets moved forward, then the surveyor will come in and do a plat of the area and really show on a map where these 2,200 square feet will be located. So yep, that all goes through public comment period.
Yeah, so the lease, the map right now, they've got the red line kind of drawn around, you kind of see it. And it kind of looks like it cuts into the fuel barge area a little bit, and it doesn't show it being around where they would have, the support boats. And presumably that would be negotiated somehow in the.
Definitely. That's one of my concerns is I want, their lease to include, if they end up building a float this size, I want them to be able to tie, I call it for lack of a better term, the mosquito fleet that is supporting them, that's coming and taking their passengers off island to be able to tie up on the inside. But I don't want them to be too wide. I don't want, them to be able to put in another 200-foot boat that is 36 feet wide and then encroaching on the pike or on a neighbor. So those are some of the comments that I've been working with the attorney on. So limiting what is tied up on the inside. I want them to tie, like I said, it doesn't make sense for their passengers to get up and then go try and find Daniel, in another place in the harbor. It makes sense for Daniel's operation, Rob's operation, to be on the inside there and then not be. So that there would be language in there about that. Also about utilities, they'd be responsible for those. Also.
Rob mentioned the marine passenger fee thing.
That is yep, we've covered that. That is a law of the land. Again, that's an ordinance. So there, regardless of who owns the facility, that has to be paid. So it doesn't matter if it's a public dock or a private dock in Petersburg, in the borough of Petersburg, they will get hit with a marine passenger fee. So that's.
So I think, just looking forward, if this goes through, I think before I asked you, I know that we have to talk to the neighbors, but verbal issues with Coast Guard, with Metro, do you see anything have they mentioned anything to you? But I don't remember.
Well, so as Casey mentioned a little bit about that red line going through the Petros fuel barge. So yeah, right, currently the fuel barge does overlap, but their lease actually is to the north. It's on the north side of Dock Street. So they actually have overlapped on this picture like they do, but outside of their boundary. So there could be times, when they come in twice, usually in the summer months. If there are two boats there, yeah, they'll have to work together. But again, currently the Petros lease is on the north side of Dock Street. And the this lease, American Cruise Lines lease, would be on the south side. So theoretically, our 50 feet in the middle would be the buffer. And so they did, they outlined it in red, but
Speaking specifically with the Coast Guard, they didn't have.
I talked with the different skippers and they likened it to tying up in a stall in the harbor. I mean, Andy gets in, or any of you get in a stall with, there's not much room to spare. Well, this could be theoretically something like that. Maybe they'll have to use a little bit more finesse getting in and out. But if they were to come into a stall in the harbor, there'd be a lot less room than even, the 50 feet that is shown on this cover page. So, yeah, so that the working in the plat will go through identifying really the location on where things are, and the language will put some real limits on what they can and can't do. Just like we have 19 different leases. They start with a boilerplate, but each one is kind of an individually negotiated. The last thing that I think I made a comment on and concern about, in the lease language, is that the connection between this facility and our facility, I want to make sure that it's engineered and it is perhaps even ADA compliant. We want people, you know, we want whatever they're building not to be, you know, something that is just a scab together project. We want to make sure that it is correct and it is not going to damage our facility. We can't really, you know, do we really care about what their float looks like? You know, it's a private dock. We haven't told anybody else what their floats look like. But we,
Quality issues there or anything like
Yeah,
that,
no.
passengers getting hurt or
no, but if they, you know, that transition, we definitely want to make sure that that is an engineered, stamped, engineered.
Wally.
Can I assume when you're talking to attorney, you're bringing up different scenarios for the future, like what if this cruise ship line sells out to some other cruise ship lines?
Yes,
Is the lease transferable if they go bankrupt?
yeah.
Do we have options and so on? So that's part of the discussion.
Yeah, it sure is. And there is a method to do that. If you remember, you know, Petro Marine has been many other things. You know, right now, Rockies Marine owns Marwin Lease, which originally was Dave McFadden, if you remember.
Yeah.
You know, so there's a lot of different, we just, you know, we just address those when the time comes. And that is all, they speak to that in the lease, the transfer. Yep, there's definite ordinance about how that happens.
Is the dock itself, is this set up to have petro moving barrels of diesel or oil and the Coast Guard running back and forth and then the parking lot, you know, the airplane float? Who gets priority, or has there been a study or anything done to know if there's enough capacity for that dock to hold everybody?
It's a street, so you know, there's sidewalks up to the dock part. There are leases all along there that have employees and have traffic, but I don't know that there's anything that is high volume. You know, even if you think about this industry, you know, one of the things we also addressing in the lease is, and that I put forward, is that we have to limit it to under 300 passengers. You know, if you think about, if you use that number, they currently are using about 150. But if you think about, you know, the breakdown of that, you know, if half of them are going out with, you know, the mosquito fleet, sorry, Rob.
We're the best mosquito.
You know, if you know, there's others that are going for a walk, if there's others that are coming back and forth, you know, I don't know that there's going to be like this huge volume of 500 people out there loitering. So one of the things we did is address the vessel can, you know, accommodate up to 300 people is what I suggested. Because that's going to limit you by, you know, the length of
What are their vessels currently? Do we?
about 150.
About 100.
Yeah, and their biggest one is 267 feet, which you see right here.
What about the parking lot? Is there a place to park buses in there, or is that gonna clog up the parking lot? Is there gonna, you know, the bikes situation in the drive down? They have their bicycles, is that gonna be permitted in that parking lot?
Vendor, so that
is.
wouldn't be there. And mostly the buses situation that these people use are those little people movers that Valentine has, you know, the small ones. They don't have the great big buses in the harbor too much anymore. Small operation, relatively speaking, you know. You know, for me, it'll be nice to get them out of the harbor, but.
That would open up the drive down dock too, right? Because they occupy the drive down dock during the summer when guys are trying to.
This year, we sent them more towards Sea Float, because, you know, it just gets too congested at the drive down. So they spent most of their time, or at least over half of their time on Sea Float, and actually loved it. They came after the season and said, "Oh, it was so wonderful. We love our clients loved the, they'd be able to, ability to get off whenever they wanted and walk and talk to the fishermen and see, and, they really felt like they were immersed in, at Peters. They actually approached us trying to secure the sea float, and I just couldn't do that for them, so.
So, we're just talking about ACL at this point. And so, running tours all summer, they occupy, the fuel dock and sea float. They're never at the drive down dock. And this would open up space at the drive down dock for other vessels when ACL isn't there. And as far as traffic goes for the buses, they are owned inside the community, not by them, and they're not parked in that dock street there. And, and there hasn't ever been an issue with traffic as far as I'm concerned right now, unless you're double parking ACL boats at the end of that, on the new float. And I don't even know if both boats could fit, but, I haven't heard any complaints from anybody at Petro, and the traffic there has been fine.
Bill, if you remember, Petro put a letter of support in for this. They are hoping that we can get them off their portion of the dock, because it really makes it hard for them to fuel boats. And so that's one of the things that we negotiate every year with Petro is, they can't have them there every single time they come to town. So that's where we ended up tying them up 20 times on sea float.
They plan on, they're gonna spend $3 million to build this dock, and they only, right now, say they need 50, use it 50 days. Have they said anything about increasing those days to more days?
Yeah, they
Or-
actually are looking at building some more boats. They are in negotiations with Haynes and Wrangell, Petersburg, and a private location in Ketchikan. Doing much the same of what we're doing here. We're kind of out ahead of everybody. They have decided that they just can't get enough traction in the big cities, like Juneau, Sitka, Ketchikan, because they're so small. They can't compete for any of the excursions. They kind of get kicked out of the locations because they just aren't big enough. So they've really decided that their operations will stem from these smaller towns and come and go from here. And, I've been pretty upfront in saying that I hope that at some point they would consider turning a boat here in Petersburg, because that's really, if you remember the Sheltered Seas days, that's where we really, I felt like, made our money. They would come to town, spend the night in the hotels, eat in the restaurants, do things, excursions or whatever, and then climb aboard and visit Southeast Alaska. So yeah, there could be upwards of, maybe 3 or 4 more of their boats, and they could be, one of those boats could be using the facility every day.
Okay, so we have a motion. The motion is just to approve the lease, and I want to
Recommended.
recommend approving the lease. And I want to just throw out there to entertain maybe a couple caveats on that. Maybe one, request that the appropriate control be maintained by the borough in the lease language, maybe throw that in there. And whether it maybe request that the lease agreement come before the harbor board again before, so that's just entertain a motion to amend that.
I think those are really great suggestions, personally. I mean, I think it will address concerns the public has, again, about that control issue for me, ownership was gonna get really expensive, and I was trying to make lemonade out of lemons, you know, if we were gonna put in $1 million, I wanted at least a chance to oversee the design so that we could at a later date spend another $1 million to get some utilities in there so that we could, you know, use it really for an extension of the harbor. But this also works. This is one, you know, the harbor won't have to maintenance it. The harbor won't have to be concerned if there's an issue. We're not going to spend any harbor money. We will receive the benefit of the lease funds will come to the waterfront, comes to the harbor. So you'll see that and really have minimal oversight and need for our attention. So that works as well.
Then can I accept that as a friendly amendment to my motion? Is that how I do this?
With the caveat of appropriate control and sending the lease back.
Yeah, just sort of, yeah, two caveats. Request that the appropriate control be maintained by the borough in the lease language, and request that the lease agreement come before Harbor Board for one more round before set in stone or whatever.
Is that a proposed amendment?
So that was me trying to entertain somebody moving to amend, but,
I would like to move to amend
okay, there we go. It's official now. And then-
what
Any seconds?
our chairman has proposed.
There we go.
Okay, so any discussion on that?
That makes sense to me.
And call that question. All in favor, say
I'll take
yes. Do a roll.
Joel Render,
Voting on the amendment or the entire thing?
The amendment.
Just the amendment only? No.
Ollie McDonald,
Yes.
Don Spiegelmeier.
Yes.
Andy Kidams,
Yes.
Daniel Cardenas,
Yes.
Scott Robert, Casey Knight.
Yes.
Passed.
Okay, so now we have an amended motion. Maybe open it up for discussion one more time.
My only concern is that there's other users for the dock already, and I haven't heard their thoughts on it, but since they're not here, that kind of tells me that they're not too worried about it, so.
Yeah, I mean, at that thing we had, was it this spring? Didn't the Coast Guard say something about it, or did they not? They didn't? Okay, so they've been absent from the conversation.
I think if they were concerned, they would say something.
Yeah, they will get letters, just like everybody else. Petro went ahead and put in a letter of support, but everybody else along there will get letter. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I've suggested it. I gave them names and numbers.
And call the question and do a roll call again for that.
Daniel Cardenas. Casey Knight,
Yes.
Don Spiegelmeier,
Yes.
Andy Kidams,
Yes.
Ollie McDonald,
Yes.
Joel Render.
No.
Passes. Moving to item C, the proposed 2026 rate increase. Maybe you have Glo start us off there. Why are we doing a rate increase?
Doing a rate increase. Well, I included in your packet just a just to bring some of you up to speed on what our budget looks like, and it's pretty darn cut and dried. We are, as you know, we live within our means. We don't have a lot of excess. With this rate increase, it will give us, if nothing goes up, if the prices stay the same, it will give us roughly about $250,000 to the good. Now, we do know that there's going to be union negotiations for increases in wages, so those will probably go up a little bit, but I don't anticipate much. Utility is a little bit, but over and above, just a few things that we can't help, we'll probably be just about right in line of where we've been. This 10% will give us another roughly about 165,000 than what we were using this last year. It's, 10% across the board. So it's pretty minimal. We tend to do it in instead of 2% every year, we tend to every 4 to 5 years make the 10% jump. It's just easier. It's a lot easier to explain to people. It's a lot easier to when we're talking, just small staff trying to do billing and things like that. We do all our own billing in-house, so it's pretty minimal. There is some concern, of course, that the raw fish tax is going to be down in this coming year or in the future. And so this also, I got to make darn sure that we are we're operating with it. Anything that we don't spend stays in the enterprise fund. Anything that we get out, the raw fish tax, we typically do not use it for annual operation and maintenance. That stays in our kitty. We currently have 4.6 million in savings, which I'm pretty proud of because we had to spend 3 million when we did the dredge in the South Harbor, and we were broke when we built the new North Harbor, and we've kind of kept it going, and we've been saving and doing quite well. So we do have the funds set aside for a lot of the match projects. One of the big projects I've put forth in the form of a grant is asking for the Municipal Harbor Match Grant for 50% to change out 4 floats on Sea Float. The first 4 on the north side are originally the Middle Harbor fingers, and so we've done engineering and design and are ready to go out to bid, but I did apply for a grant, so we'll wait until that grant comes, if that grant comes through, before we proceed. But that should run us about $1.2 million. But other than that, things are so it's a pretty small rate increase, I feel, keeping up with costs, keeping up with our neighbors. Wrangell is finally realizing that they are needing to raise rates over there, so they're pretty much in line with what we are these days. And expensive in Southeast, but we don't want to be the cheapest either, because then you end up a lot of people that come here because of that, and with that becomes other issues. So
any discussion about this in general, or could entertain a motion to approve it, and we could have discussion about that motion afterwards? But any preliminary discussion?
Budget written.
Motion, any second?
Awesome.
Spiegelmeier, second. Okay, so discussion. Maybe Wally. Why so moved?
Well, costs have gone up,
Yep,
period. So we got to do something, right?
yeah,
That about sums it up as far as I'm concerned.
yeah. So, yeah, if you do, you punch into the calculator, 2.5% over 4 years gets you a little over 10%. It's like 11%. And that's about where we're at. And 2.5% is probably, I don't know what general inflation rates are, but it kind of seems.
No, I think, and Glo hit it on the head with the fish tax. I think next year it's projected to be a down run. Quite honestly, with the new owners, I'm not sure how dedicated they are to running our cannery. So, I think it's better to circle the wagons, and 10% I think is not. I mean, nobody likes to see anything go up, but I mean, we see the way the world's going right now, so we need to keep up. And we want our harbors to be able to continue to be maintained and snow removed and the ability to fight fires if there's an issue, and water and electrical and everything we need. So it makes sense to me.
Pass out the raw fish tax history, just to kind of recap. Prior to our taking over ownership of the harbors, the general fund took all of the raw fish tax because the state owned the harbors and theoretically maintenance them as well. And then in September 06 is when we took over the final ownership of our third harbor. And really I've campaigned hard to get the there was a city council to recognize that some of those raw fish tax monies needed to come back to the harbor to help support the industry that was bringing that economic base to town. And so, you know, they slowly over the course of then the next 25 years, you can see how that they still retain a certain amount, and annually the finance director and I sit down and kind of have a conversation about what the general fund needs. It is a public resource, so there are, you know, thoughts that the public should benefit from some of that. So they, you know, they get between $300 and $350 annually, and then the harbor gets what's left over. And you can see that, you know, 19's run produced 0 to the harbor in November of 20, and so then, you know, the next few years it did quite well, but then we'll see where it ends up next year. So typically we get those payments in the fall after they've gone through, the state has gone through, and we get 1.5% back from the 3% that's taken at the dock. So.
Question, do a roll call again, I suppose.
Casey Knight,
Yes.
Don Spiegelmeyer,
Yes.
Andy Kidums,
Yes.
Scott, not here, Joel Randall,
No.
Daniel Cardenas,
No.
Paulie McDonald.
Yes.
This is right. Okay,
Again, this will go, all of these things will go to the assembly, and you'll get a chance to, if you want to publicly weigh in.
oh, item D is South Harbor parking lot, drive down dock paving project. So apparently we gotta start looking at that South Harbor parking lot, right?
So this got started this summer when Public Works made the announcement that CCON was in town to take a look at the federal building project. They were going to come in and do that, and we had a chance to maybe piggyback on that project. Well, as you can tell, they decided to go with concrete, but CCON was in town anyway, so they came through, and I asked them to take a look at our problem areas, which is the South Harbor parking lots. Primarily the south end of the South Harbor is really in rough shape. It's not going to get any better. We're patching it. We spend a lot of time in the spring patching, and it will just continue to deteriorate. While they were here, I also asked them to take a look at the drive down. That's been a conversation by a lot of people, the users, the customers, also the contractors that use it, the crane truck operator, those kind of things, use that facility, and it is really hard to keep on top of. Most of you know how the potholes, it seems like we get it graded, and within minutes, it's back to being in tough shape. We've had some really rough summers, and so that's also part of it. But this bid includes that project as well, which, so if we're looking at the South Harbor, the big part of it is replacing, is removing and replacing the asphalt that's there. And there's some patch in the crane dock area, large patches that they could do over there. But then they would remove about 4 or 5 inches of what is at the drive down now, and then resurface it, compact it, so those potholes would not be, hopefully, an issue after the asphalt. So we went back and forth a little bit, because Andy had come and visited with me a little bit about it, and I made sure that I went back to CCON and said, okay, have you really looked at this? Who's gonna do, pulling it out? And he had a conversation with, I believe, Reeds is who they were. So that being said, that number is, 1.2, 300,000 of it is mobilization. And I thought, oh, okay, great. We could go out and maybe advertise this and get other people to help us with the mobilization. But if you look at that number, what that's really doing is bringing a barge of 3,000 cubic feet of the proper sized and density gravel that this project needs. These harbor projects would use 2,400 of it. So there really isn't a lot left over, up for grabs for assistance from other places to help with that mobilization cost. So again, this number I feel is, I wanted to bring it to you. I mean, we can do it. We could maybe push it off another year or two and do it later on, but like everything, I'm sure the prices will go up, and it will continue to be. It's not that if they do bring a batch plant to town that we're gonna get a lot of help with any of these numbers in the future. Anyway, so that's that project, and we have the money to do it. It's just if we have the will to do it. It would happen in May and June, and I'm fully aware that it will be a crazy time. But it's one of those things we just have to live with. I think it goes relatively quick, different than if we were gonna do concrete and really have to shut the place down for a while they put in rebar and built forms and all that kind of thing. So I'm sure. They're shooting for May, June, so.
So it's the north end of the South Harbor, then the south end of the South, or one of
That's
them.
the north end of the South Harbor, the crane dock, and then do the entire,
Patch that, okay.
and do the entire south end where the launch ramp is and the grid. And then completely asphalt from the highway to the top of the drive down.
30 feet wide.
Do all the funds have to come from the harbor fund? I mean, is there any other, there's other borough funds that could be contributed? I mean, we are helping some of the other parts of the borough also, so.
I went to Aaron and said, do you have any need for, picking up the other 600? And he, oh yeah, but of course that's all general fund. So he'd have to go to the assembly and have to, and they may do that. But again, it won't help us with our costs because all of these are site specific. So.
I just have a question about the last, item 4 there. I mean, that's a really small number. What exactly? So is that the 30 feet of asphalt running down or? what
No,
is
that is that number 4 on the bid. That is to have Reeds dig out 4
Okay, that's
inches.
just that part.
Yeah,
And
and
then-
he mentioned Reeds. I don't
Okay,
know that
okay.
that's who he went with, but that's who he contacted to get that number, to dig it out and to compact it and put back 4 inches of fill.
So and then the 30 feet going however many feet it is from the highway down to the, or Nordic Drive or whatever it is.
That's
down-
included
That's
in number
included
2.
in that 852.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're gonna design this to handle the heavy weight of the truck. Or of the, the crane truck and
Yeah, it's street grade, so it's, parking lots, they have a standard. Again, the reason why that mobilization is so expensive is that the density of the rock we don't have anything on the island dense enough apparently. So they,
I'm no engineer, but I just have a hard time believing that taking down 4 inches of the top of the drive down pad is gonna solve the problems. I mean, if they say it's gonna do that and it's gonna work in the boom truck and all this other stuff that we're going on with every day is it gonna be fine? Are they gonna warranty this? I mean, what if it starts falling apart? I don't want my peers to be coming to me and saying, what were you thinking?
Well,
How does this work?
we do have some examples of when, I cut a deal, I don't know, 10 years ago or whatever, with, we ground up some asphalt that they had taken up, Public Works had taken up and redone a street. And we ground that up and we spread that out there. And every time it got warm out, we'd take the roller, Martin would come out with the roller and roll it. And it was actually kind of amazing how it lasted quite a while. I think, again, the best would be concrete, but we'll probably never afford that, so.
But where's this $1.5 million gonna come from? I mean, we just voted to increase rates because
Right.
we're short on funds and now we're spending $1.5 million to get newer, nicer things. Where, it's two different things in the budget.
Yeah, we're an enterprise fund. And so the operations and daily in and out maintenance comes through the revenue that we get annually. And we set aside a raw fish tax, and we set aside any revenue that we don't have to spend goes into that. So we have 4.6 million in our savings in our enterprise fund. 500 of that is spoken for. When we did the feasibility study for the South Harbor, we got a ability to get a little loan for that can be paid back over 20 years, or we can pay it back all in one lump sum after the final review of the South Harbor dredge, which will be in 2028. So I've been holding on. I have 500,000 that's set aside out of that 4.6. But otherwise, we have about 4.1 million available that we have for things like this, match projects. So I'm using that portion of that for sea float, your thing.
This is top of the list. What's next on the list? What
Well,
other kind of things could we be spending money on?
we can be spending money on just about everything. If you look at the South Harbor, that's going to be our next real big one. it's, you know, that facility is probably valued at about 65 million. And so the project that we're doing now, I'm hoping will be the avenue that we take to replace a lot of those 1984 vintage, that portion of the harbor that was built in 84. So I feel like we've got about 10 years to start chipping away at rebuilding those older floats. We're going to start with the 4 on the north side of Sea Float. That's the real big one that is looming. Did this project that is engineered, that theoretically I should be able to, just as we can afford, call up, let's say Bellingham Marine, and order 5 new fingers and install them versus because we've gone through the engineering. That's the real big one. And then it's just maintenance, you know, got a parking lot, we got to see us at the municipal harbor match caliber. You know, new harbors are going to cost 30, 40 million. And just like Wrangell, when they're rebuilding their heritage harbor, they got a grant from, you know, from the federal government for 26 million. And that's how they're rebuilding heritage. And that's how we'll have to do it if we just let it slide into the bay. But I'm hoping.
$550 550 boats, trailers. It's quite a bit of traffic.
We're ready.
We don't have a motion on the floor. Had a little bit of discussion, gotten to think about it, and entertain a motion to recommend one way or the other.
I'll make a motion to recommend that we move this forward to the assembly. Because that's the next step, correct?
Yeah.
And
I could put it in next year's budget, but this won't last that long. CCON wants an answer, so
I do have,
they're gonna ask, did the harbor board approve it or not? And if I say yes, then if I say no, then I'm standing up there by myself.
We got a motion to recommend it to the assembly. Any
Yep.
seconds?
All second.
Okay, second. Okay, discussion specifically on whether to recommend it or not. Yeah.
I think, you know, Glo hit something. She's like, and I agree, it's only gonna get more expensive. You know, I mean, everybody in here, you know, we're looking at doing, like, I'm looking at putting new motors on my boat, right? I'm gonna do it this year because it's gonna be more expensive next year. And I think, you know, and building costs are just going through the roof. So it makes sense to me we have the money, Glo's comfortable with it. It makes sense to me to move forward with this and if I don't have to hit another pothole going down the drive down ramp, that 100 times I do it during the day in the summer, I'd really like that.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that would be the main benefit.
Yeah.
I don't ever really go into that South Harbor too much, but, yeah, the only kind of stumbling block is that May, June time period is really unfortunate. Like, what if they decide they're gonna come during Mayfest or something? You know, that ain't gonna work. I don't, yeah. Is there any?
You know, I could
Yeah.
talk to them about that, you know,
Yeah.
I think they, of course, were just fitting into their schedule. So I don't know when would be a good time for them, but.
You don't foresee any more withdrawals from this enterprise fund in the near future? Or request to? You don't have any projects on the horizon?
The one I have is the Sea Float is
Okay.
the one really out there right now. Focus has really been on that Scow Bay project. Um,
Okay, hearing none, call the question, do a roll call.
They recommend to move forward to the assembly. Daniel Cardenas. Yes.
Yeah.
Casey Knight,
Yes.
Don Spiegelmeier,
Yes.
Andy Kidums,
Yes.
Ollie McDonald,
Yes.
Joel Randall.
Gotta stay with the streak. No.
Bear. Not here.
Bring us to communications, any communications? Hearing none, no further discussion items, entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Change.